Well, hi. Happy last week of December 2025. I'm shocked to say that we are here at this point. Every year around this time, I sit down and I reflect and I start to feel this very weird pressure to decide whether this year was a success for me or not. Like, did I do what I say what I was going to do? Did I move the needle enough? Did I waste any of my time? And the older I get, the more I do this kind of reflecting every year, the more I have come to realize how narrow my thinking, especially around goal setting, actually is. Because some of the years that I changed the most and that I grew the most did not look um, did not look linear when I was in the year. You know what I'm saying? I when I get to this point in the year and I look back on the year, it's tempting to think about the goal that I set in January and then hold everything that has happened or that I've done up against that one goal, that one thing that I had talked about or decided on in the earlier part of the year. And my issue is that when it didn't happen exactly the way that I pictured, like that I had planned out for that goal, I notice how my brain starts to discount everything else, which is kind of wild because usually a lot did happen and a lot was accomplished and there's a lot of stuff to be proud of, but it just didn't happen in the order that I expected. And I've heard leadership coaches talk about the end of year reviews that focus a little less on checking boxes and more on noticing the patterns, like what things kept showing up, what things were expanding, what mindsets, what ways of thinking, what things drained you, right? And that idea is really sticking with me because when I look back at my own year that way, the story gets, yeah, just like a lot more full. There's a lot more context than just some simple goal setting or some vision boarding. So let's talk about it. This all came up because when I'm planning these podcast episodes, I usually start with a story. I start with something that is stuck in my mind that I'm either replaying or I'm thinking about a lot because I believe that there are lessons in the stories. And I think that oftentimes when something turns into a story, the reason that we remember the story is because there was a lesson and vice versa. The reason we know the lesson, that's why there are parables, that's why there's children's books, is because we learn the lesson through the story, through understanding and experiencing the story. And so if you don't know, I start I start with a story. I think about what's a story or a thought process or an experience that I can share with the folks who are listening. And from that story, I start to pull it apart to find what's the lesson in that story. Why is that story sticking? And then oftentimes I will zoom out even further and think to myself, okay, so if that's the lesson, was there a pattern? Was there something that I have been experiencing that is making me remember this story? And so then I come up with a few different examples of what's going on in my life or other people's or things that I've experienced so that I can share the lesson through the story. And the specific thing I've been thinking about is a few years ago, I had made a a really specific goal to grow my speaking business in a big way. That was something that I really wanted to do, that I was really focused on. And I invested in it. I took risks investing in it. I spoke about my goal out loud, which, as you know, always raises the stakes. And some really incredible things did come from that. I booked some really awesome gigs. I was flying around the country. I learned a ton. I stretched myself. But at the same time that I started living that way, my real estate business got so big, got so much busier than I had experienced before. And I remember feeling really torn. Like if I leaned into what was clearly working, this real estate thing, something that I knew would get me immediate results, I was somehow betraying the bigger vision. Because the tricky thing about that bigger vision, if you listen to a couple podcast episodes ago about goal setting and manifesting, is you have to be taking active action towards that vision. But in order to feel motivated, in order to feel fulfilled by taking those actions, there has to be a bigger vision. So, within that goal of growing my speaking business, I still had financial goals. I still had numbers that I was wanting to hit. I still had rewards for progress that I was focused on getting to. And those rewards looked like flexibility to visit my friends. Those rewards looked like I think one of them was I booked a first class ticket on my birthday to go when my husband and I flew to Mexico or something like that. Something that was a reward for really hitting those goals. Anyways, at the end of the year, I caught myself feeling guilty, feeling like a failure, feeling bad about what I had accomplished. And it wasn't because I hadn't accomplished things, it was because the growth didn't come from the lane that I wanted it to. Yeah, it didn't come from the way that I wanted it to get there. And so I remember expressing to my friends, I feel like I failed. I said that I wanted to grow my business to achieve X, Y, and Z things, to reward myself with X, Y, and Z things. And I didn't do that because my attention got pulled to something else that to me in that moment, in that period of time when it was happening, I felt like required more of my time and mind. And I think what helped me reframe this, because I lived with that guilt for a while. I mean, I cried about it. I talked to my coach about it. I just felt like I had failed my vision in some way. And what helped me reframe it was realizing how often people talk about their careers only making sense in reverse. You know what I mean? Like you hear people talk about the way that their careers have gone from the people that you admire, and the way that they're telling it in reverse, you're like, wow, that makes so much sense. But when you are living it in the present, they didn't know that that's the way that their career was going to go, or they didn't know that was the way their life was going to go. At the time, for them, it just felt like responding to what was directly in front of them. But then it makes sense when you're telling it at the end. It's that hindsight is 2020. So I really had to start trusting the timing instead of forcing a lane, instead of forcing a plan. I had to learn for myself that I wasn't off track. I was just in a season that didn't really match the original plan. And instead of forcing myself to double down on the plan just out of principle and out of pride, I instead made a decision in the moment. I assessed what was happening in the moment. And if you listen to a previous episode about decision making, I was following what was asking for my attention based on a few different factors. First and foremost, if it was, it's the three pillars, and one of them is financial. What thing is going to give me that financial stability that I am working towards, right? If that is one of my larger feelings, one of my larger goals that I'm going for towards, okay, what is the financial piece? Number two, what is the life piece? The piece that is going to give me the experience that I want, give me the lifestyle that I want, the feeling in life that I want to have. And then lastly, what is the thing that's going to move my career forward? And as long as it had two of those three things, that's what I was going to move towards. And so I kept thinking to myself in the moment, okay, listen, I've pitched myself for a few different gigs, I've gotten them, but I have a really high profile client that's going to purchase, a number of homes at a price point that is kind of a huge thing for my career. So that will start the financial piece, but it would also build my career. And then I thought to myself, well, if I wanted to, I could also get to the speaking side of things through a different way. Maybe it is through my real estate career that I start to speak more, right? I was constantly assessing at how I could potentially get to this goal. But I think what ended up happening is, even though I was doing that in the moment during the year, at the end of the year, since the exact method of getting to my, building my speaking career to the magnitude that I wanted it to be at, I I don't know. I felt like I needed to be punished for focusing on the thing that wasn't the actual goal, even though that other thing allowed me to reach other aspects of the goal that I was going for. Are you still following me? If you're still listening, this is a process that I'm, as you can tell, currently working through. So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is there is actually research around performance and pressure. And it shows when we are overly attached to a specific outcome, our decision making and our creativity drop. And I obviously didn't know that at the time, but now when I think about it, wow, it makes a lot more sense. When I was feeling like I was just letting things go, I was letting things move, I was kind of holding everything with a loose grip. And as opportunities came, I said, okay, yes, and I'll take that. I stayed in the flow. I was able to create more content. I was able to attract better clients. I was able to achieve things that were within the realm, the flavor of the goal that I was trying to get to. It just wasn't in the way I was planning on getting there. And again, I think by letting go of the urgency to get to that speaking, I want my speaking gigs to be this many a month and make this much a year and whatever that sounded like. Letting go of that urgency didn't make me less committed necessarily, but it did make me a lot more present in what I was currently doing. And so the year that I had the authentic way that I was able to show up actually ended up being a game changer for me. And when I zoom out now, a lot of what I built during that time made the next version of this dream. Again, the dream was not just about the speaking business. The speaking business is this aspect of a bigger life, right? The goal is actually the life, the lifestyle, the feeling that I could wake up every day having, the feeling of freedom, the feeling of abundance, whatever that looked like for me. Speaking was a part of that. But the funny part about this is that I was getting all that. It was just through a different method. And so, again, I know now, looking back, that what I built during that time, my reputation, my business systems, my referral business, it made the next version of this dream, of this lifestyle, more possible, not less possible. And now, because of the business that I built there, my hopes and dreams for continuing to expand the other part of my business, my multifaceted business, uh, it just makes it all more possible getting there. Something else that feels relevant here is I used to hate making goals. Actually, this was something I did not know about myself until I met my husband in 2014. I didn't know he's my husband yet, but he was so excited. He was so pumped about creating and making goals. And I remember him asking me around the new year, "What are your goals?" We were still new. We were probably, 5 months into dating. And he said, "What are your goals for the new year?" And I remember being like, "I don't know. I don't know what my goals are actually. I've been kind of taking life as it comes." And so far, that's been working out great for me. If you remember from previous episodes, my college career, by the time I got to the end of my time as a student, I thought to myself, I don't actually know if performing is going to be my thing. I don't know if that's going to be it for me. I'm really open to other opportunities. And because of that, I went to an audition with my college boyfriend at the time and didn't care about the outcome. I went to it kind of thinking, you know what? I'm going to go to this audition in New York. I'm not really focused on booking it. I'm just focused on getting a free dance class is basically what I was doing, because I don't care about getting a Broadway tour. That was not my focus. And I think because I was so detached from the goal itself, I ended up getting it. I booked it. I was like the first student in my class to book a professional gig, and it was a Broadway tour. And I was elated, but also confused because it was not my focus. It wasn't the thing I was going on. But I just said to myself, you know what? I didn't really have a set better plan. So let's freaking go. And that started a domino effect of all this other work. And I ended up doing the very thing that I had initially set out to do. It just wasn't in the way that I thought it was going to get there. And so when I was on this ship, I was getting paid more than I had ever gotten paid before as a performer. I was in a lead role. I was vocal captaining. I was working very little for the amount that I was getting paid. And I didn't plan that. I did not plan this whole thing. I remember thinking like, I kind of fell into this. I don't want to look at it too hard because I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. I just want to take things as they come. And if I set a goal, if I get too focused on setting a goal, number one, I might miss what else could be happening outside that could be a great opportunity for me. But number two, I know myself, and I know that if I set a goal and I didn't reach it, I was going to be really hard on myself, really nasty to myself if I didn't reach it. And goals had started to feel like rules that I knew I would need to follow, just my own need to follow this arbitrary rule that I set for myself perfectly. And if I didn't, then it felt like some type of character flaw. So sometimes it felt easier to not set them at all and to just trust that whatever was going to fall into my lap was the right way to go about it. But I also remember reading once that avoiding goals is often a form of self protection, not a lack of ambition. Like I have a ton of ambition. If you know me, you know that's the truth. But it is a form of self protection. And that, well, that really works. That really makes sense for me because I know now that that's exactly what it was. I was not afraid of getting the goal per se. I was afraid of missing what else could be there, but I was also really afraid of how I would treat myself if I did indeed not reach the goal. So as I moved towards the New Year's this way, there I want a lighter relationship with goals. I still want really big things. I still like having something to aim at. But I've seen research around stretch goals that say the real value in a stretch goal, like one that you don't think you will be able to hit, isn't in whether you actually hit them, but in how they change the way that you think and move, right? It's the same thinking as if you shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll land amongst the stars kind of idea. And Voltaire has always said that to me like, well, just set a goal, a really lofty goal. But even if you only get halfway there, that's going to be more than what you would have done if you set a reachable goal. And I've always hated that because I'm like, no, if I set the goal, I want to reach it. But again, the idea that if you set this big reach goal, you'll move and act in a way that gets you further than what you would have done if you set a more attainable one, right? The issue for me, and I'm imagining it is for you as well, if you are someone who cares about what people think, or you care about the way that your life is going, or maybe you care about the way that you present to the world. Maybe you're a people pleaser like me. I don't know. But I don't, yeah, I don't like feeling like a failure. And so I have to also believe that there is some value in setting a goal that is slightly more attainable, maybe a little bit of a stretch, but not a huge one, because there is an ego boost when you actually do reach that goal. If it's one that is a slight stretch, not a crazy stretch. I don't know. We're going in both directions. I can see the arguments for both. So I suppose as I'm sitting here pontificating to all of you, as you're thinking about the year that you're leaving and the one that you're walking into, maybe the question isn't, did I hit it or did I reach the goal actually? Maybe the actual question is more like, where did I show up? It's going to be searching for the pattern. Where did I actually show up in big ways? Where did um, my life move? What direction did my life move in because of those patterns, or what things responded when I took that action? And then what stuff might just need a little bit more time? That's what I keep saying to myself with my goals and dreams about my speaking career. And I would love for my speaking and my workshopping to be my main gig at some point, but I'm coming to realize now I don't know if that's going to be the case right now. I still love what I do in real estate. I still love getting to work with the clients that I work with, and it allows me to reach a lot of the other aspects of that goal, the financial security, the flexibility, the people, kind of getting to communicate with people, being part of the community. All of that stuff happens within real estate as well. Some goals are not ones that you're missing, right? They just take a little bit longer than the original timeline. And I have to believe, as I keep that goal of mine, that vision of mine in my mind's eye, that the action that I'm taking, that I'm continuing to move forward, is somehow going to loop me back towards that. So I I am heading into this year still really ambitious. I'm trying to be less rigid about what comes. I was listening to another creator's podcast a while back, and she had talked about how when we manifest, it's not our job to figure out the how. It's our job to figure out the what. So if your goal is to, using an easy one, make $10,000 or whatever that number looks like for you, there are going to be some things that, if that's the goal, that you need to put into play. You actually do have to be taking action. You can't just stay on your couch and hope that that comes to you. But figuring out the how is what the universe will send to you, right? Is what that will come for. There's another story that one of my girlfriends reminded me of just the other day. And it was, I'm going to butcher this, but I believe it was a Bible story. And it was a man who was, you know, going to drown in a flood. He was standing on top of his house or in a tree or whatever, and the flood waters were getting higher and higher. And he says to God, well, God will save me. God will save me. And a door floats by, and he sees the door and he says, I'm waiting for, thank you so much. I'm waiting for God. God will save me. Then a raft with a couple of people in it comes by. Come on, get in the raft. He said, no, nope. I'm waiting for God. God will save me. And then a helicopter comes in and is like, we're going to come down and get you. We're going to pick you up. No, don't worry about me. God will save me. God will come for me. And the floodwaters rise. They float the man away, and he ends up passing away. When he gets to heaven, he meets God, and he's like, hey, I was waiting for you. I was waiting for you to save me. And God said, I sent you a door, then I sent you a raft, and then I sent you a helicopter, and you turned down all of them. It's this looking out for you missed the opportunities because you were so focused on this one granule of whatever that looked like. And so this is kind of what I'm trying to remind myself of is I have these loosely held goals, these kind of, yeah, just loosely held goals. And how I get to them isn't really a lot of my business. I'm going to try. I'm going to put some actions into place, and I'm going to take that action. But I'm going to be really open that while I'm holding those goals loosely, if something different comes my way that lights something up in me, or that maybe isn't that a result of the action that I'm taking, but is something outside, learning to say, you know what? Yes, and I'll take a little bit of that and see where it gets me. That is what I'm going to try and do a little bit this year, so that come next year, when I look back on the patterns, when I look back on what unexpected magic came my way, I just have a little bit more of a gentle approach, a gentle voice. So I want to be clear-ish on what I want, just more open to how it shows up. There's so much motivation research now that talks about self-trust being more powerful than self-control. And that resonates really deeply with me. So This year, I'm going to try to trust myself a little bit more, trust the universe a little bit more, and trust timing a little bit more as well. And I think that feels like a pretty good place to begin. So, if you have made it through this far with me, perhaps this gives you something to chew on as you move into 2026. But with that, thank you wherever and whenever you are listening. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.